So Tomba, it's kind of a cult classic game that many people seem to either really love or know nothing about. I would say I kind of fall into the latter category. I remember renting this with my buddy Pecker Dupree on his PlayStation 1 one weekend, but I wasn't at his house all that much, so I didn't really play too much of it. But of course, Tomba Special Edition was announced as coming to us from Limited Run Games and the Carbon Engine with our favorite British friend, but I was really interested in checking out this game because I know that people who have played it absolutely love it, but I feel like I was kind of missing out a little bit on it. I ended up getting a review copy of the game, and I've been checking it out on the Nintendo Switch, and I have to say, this is probably one of the most unique and interesting games I've ever played. And I'm even including like today's modern standards of stuff like this, because you would never see a company in 2024 try a platformer slash RPG slash 2D slash 3D style game as far as a AAA game is concerned. So what is Tomba Special Edition for the Nintendo Switch? Is this a game you should check out? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. So starting off, every platformer of course has a story behind it, and the story of Tomba is, you know, it's kind of fine. You play as Tomba. He's this weird little pink-haired dude, and basically some pigs called coma pigs stole a precious bracelet that was given to Tomba by his grandfather. So Tomba, of course, gets mad. He wants his bracelet back. It's all sort of told in a little artistic style cutscene at the start of the game. I like it. You know, I think the art style looks pretty cool. And as you start to play the game, you start to uncover the mystery of the coma pigs. Basically, there are 7 evil pigs that you have to eventually take down. They have curses on the land. You got to get these bags in order to find them and stuff like that. They're called evil pig bags. You basically do certain tasks within the game, solve some puzzles sometimes, and you get access to these bags, and then you can find and fight the pigs within their hidden lairs. So, you know, it sounds pretty stereotypical for a platformer at the time. Now, this game really, though, is anything but stereotypical, because when you first started off, you're kind of like, okay, well, what's going on here? Tomba doesn't jump on his enemies. Instead, he jumps on them and then bites them. So you basically can jump on an enemy, bite into it, and then throw it in order to kill the enemy. You also have some melee attacks with different weapons that you unlock as you play throughout the game by finding them, either the one given to you at the start or additional weapons that are found via chests within the game. You open the chest the same way Tomba opens everything. He jumps on top of it and he bites it with his neck. Now, that sounds like a traditional platformer with kind of a little bit of an interesting twist, but like I said, Tomba is really anything but a traditional platformer, because when you talk about 2.5D games, you know, 99.9% of the time we're talking about essentially a 2D game that takes place within a 3D background. So, you know, you have your 2D plane that you're walking on. Sometimes you kind of interact with it a little bit. It just has a nice 3D background. But Tomba actually is like a 2.5D game, because you find yourself jumping in and out of the environment and into the backgrounds in order to go on different paths and find different things in order to progress throughout the game. It's really interesting how they sort of blend this together, because a lot of times you could get to a destination like 1 or 2 or 3 different ways, depending on whether or not you jump into the background and sort of explore a little bit. I really like this mechanic. I think it's really well done, and it really adds like a whole nother dimension, no pun intended, to when you play this game. Now, as far as the controls are concerned, everything feels pretty tight and responsive. Tomba himself controls pretty decently, I feel. The jump that you first have at the start of the game kind of stinks a little bit, but you do unlock additional various things that you can equip that will, of course, give you different abilities like better jumping and stuff like that. So as you progress throughout the game, things get a little bit easier. Now, as you're progressing throughout the game, you'll come across things called AP points, and these are something that you're constantly gathering by collecting different jewels or items or solving people's problems, because it's not a traditional 2D platformer in which you just go left to right and you get to the end of the level. There's a lot of things that happen in this game. You end up backtracking and stuff to do various missions for various people that you come across. You, of course, activate these missions by talking to them, and that also will give you AP. Now, AP is interesting because basically some parts of the game are kind of like walled off. You have to have a certain amount of AP in order to go to like a certain place or do a certain thing, and once you hit that metric, you then get rewarded with something. I think this is pretty cool. It really sort of incentivizes going back and forth in the levels and backtracking. Now, you don't have to backtrack in a traditional sense because you do have different items that you can acquire called charity wings that will fly you to a specific portion of a level, and you can actually choose which portion of the level you go into. If all of this sounds like a lot going on, it honestly is. And I think that's what makes this game so memorable for a lot of people, is just how unique and how different it is. Because I'm sure as I'm explaining this to you and kind of showing you how it plays on the screen with the gameplay that I've captured, it's kind of something that you have to experience for yourself to get the full sort of feeling of it, but it's definitely unlike anything I've ever really played. Like, I feel like Tomba kind of stands alone in its own sort of unique thing. Like, yeah, there's been games like the Wario Land game on the Virtual Boy where you go back and forth within the background, but the level of interactivity within this game as far as exploring, it really makes it feel just so different and so unique. I absolutely have been having a blast with this game because there's so much just like hidden stuff and like little secrets that you have to come across. There's this weird dude who's like hiding in all these different areas, and sometimes you come across him, but it's so like inconspicuous that unless you were kind of looking for something, you wouldn't have found it. I just love the exploration that this game gives you, because usually in traditional 2D platformers, like, yeah, there's some, you know, look at like games like Castlevania Rondo of Blood that had a good amount of exploration to find hidden things, but this extra dimension that you have really plays a role in the gameplay of the game. Now, graphically speaking, this is a PS1 game, and unlike a lot of PS1 games, instead of using predominantly polygons, they went with a predominantly sprite-based sort of aesthetic with this game, which I think has held up very well. You know, PS1 polygons don't look all that great in modern lenses. Of course, if you have something like DuckStation, you can upscale it, but I think the Carbon engine really does a very good job with this game from a visual perspective to sort of preserve the original integrity of the game, but still make it look good on modern televisions. Some of the polygons do look a little bit wonky at times, but really the animation is kind of the star of the show with this game. Everything really has a lot of life, and it feels very lively as you're walking around these levels and finding different things. Some of these enemies you come across are just absolutely crazy, but they all feel very authentic and genuine as far as creating this world of Tomba that Tomba is essentially in. Now, soundtrack-wise, I did like the music of the game. Voices are used here and there. There's some cutscenes as well that you come across. Now, the game does have a remastered soundtrack, but you can choose the original should you choose to do such if you have a bunch of nostalgia for it. Now, this is an old game, and with my old games, I love promotional materials and sort of hidden stuff that you can find within this as well, marketing stuff, and there is a very, very nice museum within this game. I really like this aspect of the game. You know, it's promotional materials, box arts, interviews with the original people behind Tomba, and very, very good video quality, might I add. Just a treasure trove of different information about this game to kind of get you excited and kind of, you know, so you can learn about why this game was so impactful and why this game was so different back in the day. More modern differences that you can do are things like borders around the screen. You could change the screen size as well. Add a nice CRT filter if you like to do that. I don't like to do that. A lot of people got mad at me on Twitter for saying that I was not a fan of scan lines. I don't need them. It's not 1990 anymore. I want to see these games in crystal clear quality. And Tomba even also introduces the rewind feature into the game, which is kind of a bit handy, because I will say this game is pretty challenging. Now, you get a bunch of lives and you restart all the time where you are when you die, and your health meter eventually gets bigger and bigger as you get additional things to make it bigger, but it can be pretty challenging. There's lots of jumps that you'll make sometimes. Sometimes enemies are just, you know, well hidden and you just run into them. I will say enemies do respawn quite a bit, so don't think that all because you've cleared an area that it's going to remain clear. There's definitely a challenge challenge here, but with things like, of course, the aforementioned rewind feature and also the ability to save at any point in time, it'll be a breeze for a more seasoned gamer. But, you know, if you're not a super hardcore gamer, you know, it might have a little bit of a challenge for you. But I feel like all of these things just sort of, you know, make it for a more pleasant experience. If you want to use the rewind feature, if you want to save all the time, you can do that. Overall, though, Tomba Special Edition, I mean, this is one of the better games that I've played this year. Like, no BS aside, you know, it's an MVG game. It's our British friend. And if I'm able to take a dump on it, like I would, because that's what I do with my friends. I take a dump on my friends. That doesn't really sound right. I like to bust their balls. You know what I'm saying? But this is just a very enjoyable game, and I can see why this game does have a cult following. So to now be able to bring this game to the masses and be able to bring it to like everyone with this modern release, like, this is good stuff. With stuff like this and stuff like Rocket Knight, like, these are the games that we should be focusing on. You know, games that were genre defining or top of the line for a certain genre or a certain platform, and bringing them to a modern audience with the additional museum features. It's a way to preserve the games, and it's something that I definitely am enjoying and I definitely respect. But if you're on the fence about Tomba, man, and you like 2D platformers, but you also like 3D platformers, but you also like a little bit of like an RPG mechanic in there, like, this is the perfect blend of it. Like, I highly recommend this game. This game is standing the test of time because of how unique it is. And I can't really think of another game that does these sort of mechanics and does them just so damn well. So I highly recommend Tomba. We are taking a look at the Nintendo Switch version. I'm sure it's the same across the board. I don't know, maybe you get like 4K pixels on the PlayStation or Xbox or something like that, but the Switch version is awesome. I definitely recommend checking it out. Let me know what you guys think of Tomba in the comments section down below. Did you play the original game back in the day, or will you be picking up Tomba Special Edition? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, comment, share, hit the bell as well, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.